Okay, we have a quorum, so we'll call to order at 10:33. And first item is public comment. Anyone here with a issue that's not on the agenda, ma'am? And I'm sorry, we are recorded, so I'm going to ask you to...
Susan Whitlock. I live at 101 Orange Street, which is at the corner of New and Orange. It's an intersection with Beaver Street, which is two-way, New Street coming down the hill towards Orange, and then Orange one-way. If you look at it, it looks like there's 3 parking spaces there. There's really 2.5. Somebody parks on the end by New Street. It blocks traffic from turning off New. It blocks traffic from turning easily from Beaver. And I've brought some pictures of vehicles that are parked at the end. And I, unfortunately, about a year ago, missed the picture where there was a fire engine coming up Beaver trying to turn left onto Orange. There was a truck, pickup truck, parked at that corner of New and Orange, and the fire engine backed and filled for 5 minutes. Thank heavens they weren't on a call. I did get a picture last fall of a landscaping truck trying to make that turn and backing and filling. And then a couple of weeks ago, I was working in my garden, and all of a sudden I'm hearing all these horns blow, and I didn't know whether somebody was hit or just somebody was angry, and I ran out to see what was going on and immediately ran back to get my phone and take a picture. Traffic was backed up all the way as far as I could see up Orange Street. There was a landscaping truck trying to make the corner, backing and filling. People were getting impatient, but in the mix, I could see up the street was a fire engine. Again, thank heaven they weren't on a call. We could eliminate this by, it's my understanding that you're not supposed to park within so many feet of a corner, and there's never been a yellow line there, and I'm asking you, please put one there. This is what was parked.
Yep.
And there's the line, and back in there, way back, you can see the red top of the fire engine.
Yep.
There's an active one. Thank you for considering this. And if in fact I'm right that there is a setback from the corner, there really needs to be at least a short one where Orange and Back Street meet, because again, you have to swing way out to go take a right up Back Street, and if somebody's coming down Back Street, you're head to head. So just another. 20 feet from the corner anyway, right? Is it 20?
15.
I believe it's 15, but
I think it's 15 in the regs.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, I mean, comfortably there are 2 spaces
Yeah.
from the corner of New. And then as you get down towards Back, I don't know, there's maybe 3 or 4, but there should be some sort of a setback at that corner.
Sure.
Thanks for looking at it.
Thank you. I think we can just follow up with DPW with this. It sounds like something it's a maintenance thing, so. Any other comments not on the agenda? Seeing none. Let's go to official business here. The first item is update on proposed Lovers Lane, Orkawa Avenue, Monahanset road improvements. This is, again, the ongoing item that we have for any updates. Rob's not here for any updates, so we'll just go to item number 2. Request for accessible parking space on Liberty Street at 15. Request for an accessible parking space at 15, excuse me. And I'll just zoom through all these. Oops, I think I passed it. Wow, way past it. I think there we are. Is anybody here to speak in favor of this? Yes, sir. Just sure. Just state your name for the.
Ken Holgate. I'm a resident at 15 Liberty. The only handicap parking spaces close is one at the Methodist Church and one at the Coffin School. And if I did an off-street parking, you would lose 2 parking spaces.
So, I'm sorry, could you say that one more time?
I'm sorry?
One more time, could you say what you just said? The removal of two
You
park-
would lose 2 parking spaces if I did an off-street.
Oh, create a driveway.
Yes.
Okay. And you're right here at the intersection of Walnut
Correct.
and Liberty Street, is that right?
Yep.
Okay. And let me see if I have any other imagery here. Let me zoom in on this with the aerial. So I guess this is your property here, right on the corner of Walnut.
That's the wrong,
Or
What do you
is this 15?
yeah, that's it. There's only room on the west side. The house sits on the property line.
Okay, yeah, you're here at 15 there. Turn that off. So I guess that last parking space along the aisle, is that what would be requested to be designated as accessible? This
Yes.
last space?
Right.
Okay. All right. Any comment at all from the group? I'm gonna put the aerial.
I'll second for discussion.
Go ahead.
Could we or should we consider a provision that that the space is reevaluated should the applicant no longer reside at the property?
Which I think is always something that we try to routinely do is
So
if
that's
it's no
why
longer.
I thought I would just add it to the motion
Okay.
or suggest it for, not add it to your motion, but just for, add it for discussion as a consideration for a condition of approval.
Sure.
Is that okay with you, Mr.
sorry.
Holgate?
I couldn't hear him.
He wants to reevaluate the need for the space
If you no
Going forward.
longer reside there.
if you no longer reside there.
If
So
I
as
no
long as you
longer-
live at the property, the space will be there. If you're no longer living at the
Yes.
property, move someplace else,
Yep.
then
We
Yeah,
would
it's
look
only
at
just
it.
change it over to something else.
My lifetime or whatever.
I didn't want to say it that way, but.
Now, also as comment, we always talk about the number of accessible spaces in the downtown area. We do have in our regional long-range transportation goals to increase the number of accessible spaces. That's something that Elder Services and Council on Aging, they support adding accessible spaces in the downtown area, which is great. We should keep adding these. By no means does that mean that we're deficient at all. By my tally, we have close to 3% of our parking in the downtown area, in the whole area, in the core and everywhere else. 3% for accessible spaces, and the standard nationally is 2%. So we do provide a little bit more than the minimum, but we do want to add going forward in strategic places. So motion to approve the request for an accessible parking space on Liberty Street, and it's been seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
This matter getting approved by the board.
I'm sorry, Jack.
It does have to be approved by the select board. We'll send our recommendation to the select board, and they'll have to take their action as well. Thank you. All right, let's go back to the packet. All right, and the next item on the agenda is request for a curb cut at 27 Westchester Street, which will eliminate one on-street parking space.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to recuse from this matter.
Sure. Art Gasparo's recusing from this. Art, are you speaking on this matter? You're not going to? Sure.
Am I still okay with the quorum? Yeah. Oh, okay.
I was just going to ask that, Joe. What is our quorum?
We do have an issue with the quorum, yeah.
I shouldn't have brought it up.
No, I was going to ask that, too.
No, now that we're looking around, we only have 3 members that can vote on this. Unless, Ray, you want to serve as the DPW designee, or I don't know if you've given that authority at all. Okay, so yeah, we would be short. If this, perhaps we can discuss this, we wouldn't be able to take any action. Is that acceptable to the committee to hear this matter, or do you want to hold this off till
I think
next
we
month?
should hold it off until we have everybody who's going to vote can debate
Very good.
That should
All
be
right. So if that's all right, we'll hold this over for the August meeting.
Sure.
Okay.
When is the meeting in August?
I believe it's the 17th. Let me double check the calendar here. Next meeting will be, excuse me, the 22nd, August 22nd.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Sorry about that. So we will table lack of quorum. Okay, item number 4 is discussion regarding possible elimination of parking along Hooper Farm Road at Surfside Road to Surfside Drive. And there is a letter in the packet from Bert Tupper, Harold Ryder, requesting the concern. There's a photo in the packet as well. Has everybody had a chance to look at this issue at all in the field? Just to look at the problem, or at least the,
It's on Surfside Drive, right? You're gonna have the no parking?
exactly. Excuse me, along Hooper Farm Road, Jack, just to be clear. It's the dirt section of Hooper Farm Road between Surfside Drive and Surfside Road.
Right, where it goes straight.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was confused where it was worded.
Yeah. So it's definitely the dirt section here, and then with the photographs in the packet kind of show the condition there. Again, we do have no parking by statute in the vicinity of an intersection, but still we do have some cases of on-street parking in this area. So, any comments at all from the committee?
I agree that there should be some improvements or treatments to this area. I don't know if we need a little more information in terms of an actual, some kind of a sketch plan, either developed by the applicant or by the town. But I think it should be addressed. I do see it as a potential safety issue there. But I don't know that we have enough, information to simply come to a determination on the fly as to exactly what would go there.
Yeah, we need to go there and view it.
I mean, I've looked at it, and I agree that it's, I think we all know it. I think that it's with that development next door and people parking there for overflow, to some extent, it may just be covered by the 15-foot rule, but I think it goes, with the rounded corner there, that gets difficult too. Where do you sort of measure from? I would say at a minimum,
Yep.
that would be done, would be to examine it for no parking, with no changes to anything, just under the current regulations. But he also had made some suggestions that I think are a little outside of our purview in terms of split rail fencing and drainage improvements,
Yeah.
perhaps referred to the DPW.
Okay, so short term, some kind of designation for no parking within the vicinity of the intersection at a minimum.
And a
Anything
referral to the DPW.
anything beyond that? But the request is no parking, I guess, along this whole stretch. Just to be clear, the item on the agenda.
Hard on a dirt road, because the dirt road
No
is
par-
so narrow to start with.
Yeah, I think what we're talking about is no parking either side of this whole corridor.
Right.
Oh, okay. I could agree with that.
No parking either side.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
Kind of
it's
say
really
what the police chief always says, without having markings and signage along that whole road, it'll be tough for them to enforce, and what we recommend would be kind of a difficult thing going forward, and also without knowing where the lines are for this, I think I'd be more inclined just to address the intersection before we take and jump right into saying no parking along the whole roadway.
Usually leave it to Ray's artistic discretion to maybe 3 or 4 signs along the corridor, one side of the road, no parking either side, a couple of mid-block and then at either end.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fairly short stretch. It seems that if you, and there's only way in it, one way really in and out. So I would see an a position where, you know, a driver that entered the road from either side was put on notice.
And then something
If there was a
mid-block just
sign
to
on each
cover.
side that said no parking either side. I'll make a motion to designate the portion of the road no parking either side.
Second that.
Second for, and discussion, Steve?
No.
No discussion? Okay. Motion seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is unanimous. Okay, next item on the agenda is a request from the Mill Street neighborhood, basically a review of traffic concerns. And there's a letter in the packet with a number of points that they had wanted the group to be made aware of. The road's narrow, there's a lot of parking on street, opposite driveways. Cars parked in front of the land bank park are largely parked on the property, which I don't really know where the property line is there to say that it's on land bank property or not.
I'm here representing Mill Street. My name is Janet Bailey, because Joan couldn't be here.
Sure. If you want to please go to a microphone and, you know, I'm trying to summarize the letter as briefly and quickly as I can and without sounding too clumsy, but if you want to go ahead and maybe explain to the group of the concerns and maybe a suggestion that the neighborhood.
Well, she's covered a lot more than I'm going to cover. I'm just putting it, I'm at the corner of New Dollar and Mill.
New Dollar and Mill, and
She's kind of emphasizing Prospect to New Dollar.
sure, and your name again for the record?
My name?
Yeah, just because we're recording
Oh,
for minutes.
Janet Bailey,
Janet Bailey,
and I'm at 11 Mill Street.
okay.
And I think one of the things that would be helped is the curbs along Mill Street need to be repaired, a lot of them. And the yellow lines are covered because of dirt. So if the dirt could be removed and then repainted, I think it would help tremendously. Because people are parking like in front of 11 Mill Street, even overnight, every night. Not that that bothers me, but it's just that there's just dirt there and there's yellow line, but you can't see it.
Yeah,
And so if people park there trying to make the turn is pretty hazardous. But they're having issues up at their end because of the road is narrower, I think, and people are parking on both sides.
exactly.
They're not parking on both sides, we're at the other end, but they are parking on the yellow line because you can't see it.
Exactly. And I believe there was an issue in this stretch of land bank property where if there is parking on both sides
Oh,
of the
that's the
road.
land bank, yeah, the land bank, is that what you're talking about?
Well, we can see from the picture here, cars lined up along the park. But
Yeah.
there is parking allowed on the opposite side of the street as well, correct?
No, I don't think so.
Well, I just,
I hope
I just
not.
didn't see a yellow line there. I think that was part of the concern was that it wasn't designated no parking. So there
Oh.
was really nothing to
Well,
inform.
then you could never get through there if you had parking on that side too.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the problem.
Yeah, exactly. Any comments from the committee at all? Because I was going to spitball some suggestions that we take a look at. And again, I don't know if we're going to come to a conclusion at this meeting, and maybe we carry this over to the August meeting. But any comments at all from?
I know the traffic on that street's been really heavy this summer. People have found it as a cut through, which I've always used it for years. If I'm going down Quaker Road and it's filled up, I cut down Dessler Street over the mill and use it. The other day I did it, and I just stuck there for about 20 minutes. Just couldn't move. The
Yeah.
traffic was so heavy.
Yeah. Was it parking conflicts that was causing some of the?
Right.
Okay. Any comments from anyone else at all? Now, because you're here and you live on New Dollar, I'll kind of ask
I
this.
live on Mill and Udall, the other corner.
Mill and New Dollar, and let me just, maybe we bring this up.
Mike, what I'm hearing is a lot of this could be possibly addressed with a good street sweeper when it got repaired and maybe some new lines. And maybe referring this to DPW would be the most prudent at this time.
They ought to get in and clean those lines up in town.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was taken in the winter when we had our construction done, and we're probably part of the reason that the curb is gone, perhaps, and it's not the lines are covered because we had workers there.
Yeah. I'm gonna just bring this up, because this has the yellow lines on there as well. There's Prospect Street. Now, this is our GIS layer of yellow lines, and you can see that there are gaps here to where it does look like there is parking allowed on both sides of the road. The thing that I would throw out for the neighborhood to consider would be no parking along this north side. Just basically put a yellow line all the way along this entire stretch.
That would be very helpful, but I think that would be great, but now, still, when people come down to Dollar Lane to try to take going up north, they're parked there. I saw someone get a ticket there the other day, so maybe they're not supposed to be there, but you can't see the yellow line anymore.
On what stretch? I'm sorry. This
Right where you are, yep.
right there?
Right as you come down to Dollar Lane, someone's parked right there.
Okay. I'm hearing two things. One, obviously the street needs to be cleaned up so you can actually see the yellow lines and repaint them, so that's clear. But I do think there's some connections that are needed just to cordon off parking and keep it on one side of the road so that you don't have the conflicts.
Yeah,
And
and I think if we can get that curb put back, and just have that whole area tidied up so people would know where they could get it and not park.
What's the curb missing? On a new Dollar Lane?
The
I
curb
think it's
in
this
front
right
of
here.
11 Mill Street. It's the reason the yellow line is on both sides is
This is
because
the curb.
you can't make the turn with the car on the other side.
Right.
The road's just narrow. I mean, you can, but you might hit a car.
Yeah.
You don't want to do. Are you Mike?
Yes, I am.
Okay, anyway, that's.
Nice to meet you as well. I think the best thing to do is maybe ask DPW about the maintenance. We carry this over for next month. I think the original Joan, who wrote the letter, Joan Taylor, was away and couldn't attend this meeting.
Right.
Maybe it's best we just hold this off for a month, and when she gets back, maybe there can be more discussion with the neighborhood to see if something, an idea.
She's gonna be concerned though, because it's pretty.
No, she's doing a very good job of being the quarterback of the neighborhood and kind of shepherding this idea. And I've gotten a few emails from neighbors that were on an email copied on this. So there is issues out there. Just we need to find a proper solution.
Okay, that's fine.
And might I add, perhaps in the interim, you could prepare a sketch or a drawing of a option or alternative or two that could possibly actually be adopted at the next meeting. Just a thought.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I was actually trying to get that out of the neighborhood as the actual request. Last thing I want to do is be hard-handed and heavy-handed and tell them what the recommendation is going to be. You always like to have that come from the neighborhood. And then we kind of basically second it and carry it on as a recommendation to the select board. That wasn't really the strategy used by the neighborhood. They really just want to point out a bunch of problems and say, have us suggest what those solutions are. So if my suggestion would be no parking along the north side of the roadway. Perhaps you all want to take a look at this before next meeting, and we can discuss that idea again, or maybe there's another refinement to a proposal. But I'm happy to do that, sketch something up, and just consider it.
It's easy if it's just that one side.
I agree with Art. Maybe if we do that and maybe share the possibilities of that idea with,
Just email it around to the group.
Just do know when people come down to Dollar, that area when you're turning, if it's just one side, maybe they'll do it with a small car, but these trucks will have,
if we take and
if you go look, you can.
have an idea that's shared and can be agreed upon among the parties that are really truly involved, we're not going to end up with a,
No, we don't want to fill
In a-
this room up with the neighborhood.
and
Yeah,
then a month later have to reverse a decision or
exactly.
whatever. So.
So if it's okay with the group, we'll table this for the August meeting. Everybody's aware of the issue, though? The 22nd.
In the meantime, can we
Same time, same place?
Yes, ma'am.
maybe refer to DPW to see if their recommendations on, I don't know what curbing's being talked about, but whether that is a town's responsibility or not, as well as a timeline on if the lines were to be painted, when that would be, so we could possibly have an answer for that too. Repainted or redesigned.
Will do. Okay, next item on the agenda.
For your time.
Thank you. That's Mill. This is request for speed limits. Item number 6, a request for a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit sign along Low Beach Road. There's a letter in the package. The police chief asked that this could be held off for a month until he can be back here. But I believe the request is one of these 25-mile-an-hour town-wide speed limit signs that are in different locations, just putting that up in the area.
I make a motion to approve the request.
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Discussion?
Go ahead.
Are we gonna, I mean, we've been asked by a member of the committee and the police chief to put this off for a month just to talk, so he could probably be present. Is that why I'm asking? I mean, if we can,
I read the police chief's letter to say that MPD supports it.
okay,
That was why
that's, just,
Well, if he's not going to oppose it, I don't see any harm in
says,
going ahead and approving
right,
it.
he says support it just east of the stop sign down by the CG housing.
Which, of course, is posted 15 miles an hour. But motion's made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That'll be unanimous. Item number 7, this is one of the next 3 items were just recently added to the packet. Request for a no parking yellow line at 27 York Street. And this is a driveway at the African Meeting House. Don't know if this, is anyone here to speak on this? Yes, sir. Just be sure to state your name for the record.
Good morning, I'm Kamal McCarthy with the Museum of African American History.
And I'm Marcia Fader, representing the museum as their architect.
Thank you. And the issue is people are parking on the sidewalk across the driveway. Is that the issue?
So the specific application is for the driveway being blocked at 27 York Street.
Okay. Let's see if we can bring up a map here. And there we go. Actually, I'm going to turn this on. This is better. And your driveway is pretty much right in
No.
this. It's not it?
Further to the right, correct.
Yes.
It wouldn't be this property, is it? This is 25. This is 27 here, yeah?
So the museum has 2 properties, 27 and 29.
Correct?
So this particular application is at 27 to the right.
Correct.
So that's
Which is this building here, correct?
kind of the east, yeah,
Yep. And the driveway is
to the east of that building.
to the east of the building.
Yep,
Right there.
yes.
Okay.
So we're actually, Kamal and I were here to discuss that as the immediate request and also to begin a discussion about some other parking issues.
I would love to pick your brain while you're here on just parking along York Street. In general, my first question was the driveway didn't show up in our GIS. And I needed to chase that down to see if that was an approved driveway.
Is it
Well,
new?
the driveway is, we know the history is certainly it was in by 1930. And I made a request when we began the restoration work about 6 years ago. And I searched my email and I forwarded that on to Erica Mooney yesterday. But the line was painted and confirmed by Kara Buzanowski in September of 2013 for that driveway. So that has not changed.
So the driveway was approved in September 2013. I'll just,
Well, I'll say the line was repainted at that time.
okay,
So the approval was, the driveway has a much longer history
okay,
to 1930.
okay. I just couldn't, honestly, I couldn't find it in our
couldn't
database.
find it?
We have a database of all driveways, and
So
I
is
just
that a
couldn't find that.
photographic database?
Exactly. It's based in our GIS, and that's usually if we don't find it in that, it's an alarm, and then we just chase it down at the DPW to see, okay, is this an approved driveway or not? If there's no record of it, then we're in a situation to where we don't. So I was just trying to
Yeah,
better understand the
okay, so that's a surprise.
yeah, and honestly, looking at the yellow line database here, where are we at? Hopefully, I don't get lost. I'm trying to navigate through here. This is the property here with our yellow line. I just didn't see one in the yellow line database here showing a driveway, so it was a lot of confusion just trying to review the request.
Oh, interesting, yeah.
There's also not a yellow line in that image either in front of the African Meeting House, even though there's currently one there now.
So you're kind of on your database missing 2 yellow lines. So the meeting house is the building next to the corner.
Exactly.
Yes,
Yep.
which is technically 29 York. So there's also a yellow line there.
Present.
There is a yellow line there. Okay. Okay. All right, if it's all right with everyone, I just want to be able to maybe table this for the month and just to see what the DPW has. And
I was gonna ask that if we could do some research on this to make sure that we're making the proper decision, because honestly, I've tried to go back and think about, yeah, I know you're saying this driveway was in there for some period of time, but in my recollection, I don't remember there being a driveway there. I remember it being a yard more too.
Well, you will see, and certainly we can supply you with the photographs in addition to site visits that you can make, but the driveway consists of 2 parallel lines of concrete. And that has been what was installed in 1930, but it was obviously a driveway, and there was a garage at the end of it.
Yeah, that's what, if I may, that's what I was going to bring up. I mean, I think it's just obscured from aerials because of the big tree. And if there's a garage in the back, then there's obviously a driveway that goes to the garage. And I don't know why we really need to, continue it. If you have a driveway, you should be able to get in and out of it.
It might just be that I remember the resident who used to live there never
Parked in
Never
it.
parked
But if
in
you
it.
had if you have a garage
Mrs.
and a
Jones.
driveway, it doesn't really seem fair to me that you allow parking in front of anybody's driveway.
no, it's yeah. Again, my confusion was, how recent was the driveway, and
I think
if
it's the
it's
tree.
always been there, that's great.
Yeah.
And fine. I couldn't find any record of the driveway, so it's just for my own curiosity to
You know,
kind
the
of
other thing, if we had a document, do you have the document that with saying that the line was approved from the DPW director?
I do, and I had forwarded it to Erica Mooney yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's an email with me requesting from the DPW to repaint the line, and there's a response from Kara Uzanowski saying, yes, it's all taken care of.
Okay.
It's been done. So again, we're in here for 2 things. One is to really move that forward so that we could get your approval and get that repainted. And secondly, we have some other questions to open a discussion about the rest of the line that the properties front on. But we would really request that you take action on repainting the driveway line because it is staff parking. It is active parking, and it has been active.
I just missed that.
Yeah, I was trying to bring up the street view as well. It wasn't coming up on mine.
Yeah, Google
So
doesn't
if
have
you
it.
go down about 4 trees, the driveway is right after that 4th tree, yes.
Yeah.
1, 2,
In this
3.
area?
Nope, the
Take it
4th
further
tree
one.
down,
There you go, right?
just before the white fence.
Yeah, it's right there.
But
and
of
I
course,
think-
from this angle, you can't see the width of it, but it's a full driveway width and cuts there.
I mean, the applicant telling us that they have the information they provided to town admin. I think it's just not in your database because of the database is probably primarily based on aerials, and that I can see right there from that tree in the aerial I'm looking at. I almost think I can see the concrete in this one, going back, there's a garage. I think there's a overwhelming amount of evidence that there's a garage, there's a driveway that was there. So I think that it's important that, I mean, we can always continue things at the same time. It's somewhat burdensome to applicants and citizens to just have to come back if it's pretty clear. So to me, I would support the request.
Okay.
Well, we are in this is the site plan of both the properties.
Mm-hmm.
It, of course, was surveyed by Blackwell, showing the parallel lines and the driveway,
Okay.
this being Five Corners, the meeting house.
Understood. Is this your copy or is this something you can
It is
share?
my copy, but
Okay.
I can easily email that to you in a cleaner one, but this was.
Art, what area are you looking at?
Just whatever Google Earth came up, so I assume it's a 2018.
And I'm not trying to be against this at
Yeah.
all, I'm just trying to pull up the town GIS and go back to the 98 aerial.
Mm-hmm.
You can see the building in the back and very much a big green space in front of it. Whether there was a driveway there or not before is a whole other question, but
I mean, if it's concrete, like aged concrete,
Quite.
I understand it in.
oh, there you go. Mike's got it. Yeah, I mean, I can see why.
That's why I always remember, and this
As-
wasn't
yeah.
far from where I grew up, and I never remember that being a garage. I remember that being yard. That's not any way,
Yeah, no, I
perfect
understand what
thought,
you're saying.
but I always remember that being a yard. And if we're adding, we're, at what point in time does it not? And does it does?
Yeah. Honestly, I think there's a lot of confusion, and if we could just take a beat and just get the paperwork in front of us, if this is a request for replacement or remarking of a line that was already spent, we don't have that, so it's just a lot of confusion. So I'd hate to make a recommendation on
But
just
you
not
have
having all the
We have
information.
the confirmation from the DPW, the prior DPW director, and it's none of the history. I have an entire historic structure report. I have the surveys. I have the existing conditions. It's all, and
Sure.
the only last tenant that was in the building was the Jones family, and it was his workshop. He used it, and that was used as a driveway. So that was the last tenant. There's no other history, and it's just that, again, it's summertime, and we're losing our staff parking because people are parking there. So it's, in most any other part of the year, if this was March, I'd say, fine, we can wait a month. But with this, it's clearly a driveway that's been in existence.
Yeah.
Did the email from the DPW director make it into the packet?
No, and I didn't see it, and that's the only reason I'm giving this pause is because we don't have the information in front of us, so I don't feel like I can have a fully informed recommendation. You very well may be 100% correct.
Can you make, is it possible
and-
to make a vote and or a vote based upon receipt of
And-
that
and-
email?
And quite frankly, if there was already a yellow line once upon a time that was there, and this is just repainting it, you don't really need us to do anything at all.
Just do anything.
This is, right now, how we're reading this is a request for a new yellow line, and that's why we have to be very thorough. If it's just a maintenance issue, then,
Your data don't show the correct
yeah.
yellow line in front
The
of
the second we can confirm that,
so-
DPW can go out and just paint it. We don't need action.
Right, and not to be
Right.
a naysayer or anything else. A lot of people get out their own yellow paint
Oh,
and make
yes.
their own yellow lines.
Yes.
So to say that there's a yellow line in a place and it should be there, doesn't mean the town put it there. So that's
No.
why we have to rely on data and maps and
No,
past
that's understood.
information to make sure that we
But in
put
this-
yellow lines where they are supposed to
I
be.
assume in an 1820s building that's why the town wanted that yellow line there, but
But in this case, there is the confirmation from the DPW from the 2013 email.
Correct.
So, but I hear you
Yeah.
that we really just then have to pursue this further with the DPW because it's the
I can go this-
repainting of a line.
Exactly. I can go this
not a
afternoon and just
reline.
check with Erica. She got the email, and it'll just be, we'll forward it to DPW as a maintenance item. They'll issue a work order to replace the yellow. That's how quick that could happen.
Yes.
But if we just need to fill in the dots. And if we have to bring this back next month, we'll bring it back next month. If it's a maintenance issue, then it'll be done sooner than that.
Perfect. So I understand you'll just follow up with Erica and.
Correct.
And if that can move forward as we would like to think it can, that'll happen. So, so the second, I think that Kamal has brought
Sure.
up one thing, which is that the other existing yellow line is not in your database also, which we're understanding is a big concern. But then the other concerns are that we have been in the throes of completing the restoration of the total of the 5 buildings on the properties. And that should be completed this year. And so we're just wanting you to kind of alert you to the existing parking issues and access issues that exist. One of which is that even though there is a yellow line near the meeting house entrance, there is no handicap space for access for handicap to the museum. And currently, the parking between the museum's driveway and the meeting house is all on completely covering the sidewalk, so no pedestrians can make their way up that street, which is very narrow. It's a real safety hazard. We're completing the main house, which is to the immediate west of that driveway. And there are cars that park so that you can't even get into the front gate to the house, which again will be open to the public for touring that house. And so it's just an issue that Kamal and I are both aware of that can only become, get exacerbated as completion and more educational programs open up and more visitation, not just parking, but pedestrian access and handicapped access.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Based on the plan that was just shown to us and the fact that you have a survey, my suggestion to move the ball down the field on this particular request would be to actually modify that plan for a consideration at the next meeting that actually shows very specifically, the sidewalk where you would suggest no parking, perhaps a spot for an accessible modification, understanding that it's a public road, however, somewhat of a public-private partnership. The more that you could lay out there with the information that you have would make it easier for both this committee to make, again, this committee is only advisory to then the select board. So whatever comes through here has to be clear enough to then get a vote upstairs, if you would. So I think with the plan work you have, if you actually could prepare a proposed conditions plan that shows, the sidewalk, maybe shows the width of the street, how there's not actually enough room for the cars to park off of the sidewalk, and where you would propose, the stretch to be specifically designated as no parking.
Okay, we can certainly
I think
do
that would help
We could certainly
everybody.
do that.
That
And
was
I-
gonna be my suggestion as
No, that's
well,
just
is to
well
come
said.
back with a more detailed.
I think that we can
Idea.
certainly provide that detail. I felt that since I wasn't familiar with your work and what can pass muster with you, it's like, the ideal would be not to have parking so that people could walk on that sidewalk.
Okay.
But
Well,
I don't
that's-
think that would
and-
pass.
and
So
that's-
that's why I thought, well, do you have suggestions that we can input into
Yeah.
such a proposal? Because I know that it's the road, York Street, where the NERDA bus, it's its route. And the cars, you can't have parking and the bus, there's not enough width. And you can't have a sidewalk. So I just didn't know what we should be proposing.
Sure, and I'll just let you know that this body in the past, as well as the Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, has recommended no parking along this entire stretch of York Street, so that we can do exactly what you're suggesting, is free up the sidewalk and create perhaps a bike lane next to the sidewalk to where it could be used by more users. We could prevent the NRTA from having conflicts with parked vehicles because it is so narrow. But that's we've been asked by town administration to actually reach out to the neighborhood, and that's just going to start soon. So it's very timely you coming here. So I would see if you, and honestly, I would support the off-street parking here, especially if they can provide accessible parking spaces on site and lessen the burden of on-street parking. Does that, if we can just, would you be supportive of, say, removing of parking on street, or?
Removing for this stretch. The only one that would be the handicap one, which we wouldn't have any spot to put that onto the property.
On-site, you wouldn't have space for on-site accessible parking?
We would not.
Is that something you could probably look into? And when we talk
Yeah.
about it next month, we could probably have a discussion of that?
I mean, I've worked on this one for, I'm sorry, I don't like, I know.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I know like the elevation, I mean, it's a drop off and for the three small buildings that are at the north side of the back property line, we've had to provide accessible pathways to those three buildings, and there's not another space on the, I mean, going down the driveway, which would be the obvious driveway, is
Sure.
it's a dip. It's even scary when you're in your own car trying to get out of it because of the change in the elevation. But you can see, I don't know where that might be, but
Okay.
I can't, yeah.
Well, that,
I think a more detailed plan showing the accessibility,
Some grades.
where they would come, and if you have these paths in place, show how they integrate with where maybe you think the accessible spot should be, so that,
Right, which is at the entrance to the meeting house. That's where the paths begin and take you to all the three buildings at the back. So I don't know whether that is something that's workable, where you have no parking, except you have one accessible parking space that
Probably
interrupts
not.
that. You know, that's on top of then a bike path, correct?
you'd have to make the accessible spot the last spot on the street and then yellow line the rest.
and just call it
Yes.
one of the local quirks of the islands that exist all over the place.
I think I think if you could propose it on a plan, then otherwise we're kind of doing circles.
Yeah, we can discuss it next month.
No, that helps, thank you.
Okay, so we'll table this for next month, and we'll do some homework in the meantime, and then hopefully sooner, maybe next month, but we'll wait and see. So we'll table this. Thank you.
Thanks.
The next item on the agenda is a request for no parking at 9 Pine Street. Bring this up in the, is there anyone here to speak in favor of this issue at all? Seeing none. There is pictures in the meeting packet of the area where on-street parking is allowed. And obviously, that's the stoop that's getting hit. That's not the stoop that's being hit. There's the,
I would wonder, if I may, whether the stoop is within the public road right away or not. And if so, is there a license for it?
There we go. And I'll just bring in the. Okay, so I guess that's the stoop, and there's the parking that's allowed. And I'm actually going to bring this up, because I think this might be a little bit easier with the yellow lines on there.
If I may, I don't
Go ahead.
see the select board supporting this.
Yeah, I mean, it's this this section of parking there that it's actually showing a yellow line through this area, but that's really not what's out in the field. Art, did that sound like a motion?
Well, I just want to have a discussion, I mean, with the board too. I mean, that's just my sense. I mean, we could ask for more information, but I don't know that I want to make, drive someone down a road either that, isn't going to necessarily change what we're going to propose, I mean, I put that out there as one potential issue.
Because if those steps are out there, the corner of the houses.
Where are we at?
As well.
So it's opposite of, like if you come up Center Street, I mean, you come up Summer Street, the church is on your left and you're gonna take a right. See, Summer Street is the top of the corner,
Summer Street is back here.
just back there.
Yeah,
Right.
I think you're on the wrong side.
Yeah, see, there's the church. Right here,
There we
right?
go. Yep, that makes better sense.
And so-
it's this section.
Well, I guess it's sort of interesting then that you're previous database of the yellow line seemed to show a yellow line there.
Which could be, you know, that was done by Beta a number of years ago. It could have been a mistake. I had this in my parking inventory as on-street parking. It's always been out that way in the field, just a gap in the section.
I mean, my just hunch
Yeah.
is that the picket fence and the face of the building is actually the property line. Now, I don't know, you know, those stairs have probably been there hundreds, you know, possibly of years, but I'd make a motion to deny the request.
Is there a second?
Second for discussion real quick.
Sure.
Exactly what are they asking for? How much space are we looking at? I mean, just to say in front of the steps is kind of.
Connect those two lines.
He wants to connect those two yellow lines, so you lose 2 spaces in town. I'm, you know, I could,
Oh, well, there's a tree there too. How's your,
We're great taking the turn as long as there's nobody parked on the other side of the street, which happens often. And it's posted as no parking. That's the only time we get in trouble is parking in front of the other house.
motion made and seconded to deny? All those in favor say aye.
aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Next item. This is the next item. Next item on the agenda is request for a yellow no parking line across from 1A and 5A Lily Street. There is a letter in the packet making the request. I believe there's some material as well. There it is. These two driveways do show up in the GIS database, so this is no issues there. I believe the request is just removing approximately, just measuring this out, 50 feet of on-street parking, leaving one space at the intersection of, was that North Liberty and Lily Street? One space at either end, and removing a 50-foot section.
Big tree there anyway, right?
Yes.
How long these driveways been in place? How long the driveway's been in place?
At least 10 years because it's showing up in our GIS. So that got mapped out as part of their. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, sir. Are you here to speak on this issue? I'm sorry? I'm the person requesting. Sure. If you could go to the mic. I'm sorry. I didn't recognize you earlier, but if you could explain the request.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Tim Moran, and I own 1A Lily and 5 Lily. And opposite the driveway of 1A and 5 Lily, it's virtually impossible to back out because cars constantly parked on the other side of the street. If there's a truck there, it's virtually, you have to do a 3-point turn almost to get out of there. To top it all off, coming out of 1A the other day, I punctured a tire. It cost me $360. That's probably why I'm here, because it infuriated me that I had to do a 3-point turn to get out of the driveway, out of 1A, and then I hit a curbstone in the driveway. But it's different. It's really difficult. I'm looking for some relief just opposite the driveways on 5 Lily and 1A Lily. If we could get that would. And also right there, we are right that people come barreling down Garden around to Lily, and it's a really dangerous situation. And along with the proposed yellow lines, is it possible to get a speed bump at the beginning of Lily? Like there's 2 other speed bumps down on Lily, but when these people come down Gardner onto Lily, and those cars are all parked on the left side of Lily right there, it's quite a dangerous situation. So it's scary because cars do come barreling down Gardner onto Lily. And
Okay.
Anyway, if we could get some relief across from the 1A and the 5 Lily, that'd be great.
And this is the driveway for 1A.
Yeah, that's it right there.
Okay, any comments from the committee at all?
So it's 3 requests, one for yellow lines across from the two driveways and a possible speed bump at the beginning of Lily.
Yeah, the speed hump wasn't part of the original request, I don't
It
believe.
is in the, it's in the envelope, it is in the original request. It didn't end up on the agenda.
Okay. Well, we do have an application process for speed humps, and
Oh, you do? Okay.
we can send that to you, and as well as the process for requesting a speed hump.
Okay.
But on this matter, is there any comments from the committee on the request?
Do you know how wide the roadway is there, Mike?
I think I tried to measure it, and there's like 15 feet from the edge of the parking aisle to for the edge of a car that's parked to the driveway. So it's not a lot of space for maneuvering. If I were to guess, I'd say 20 feet curb to curb. 7 or 8 feet of that's used for parking.
It goes back to that tough one, whether driveway's been in place for at least 10 years.
Yeah.
You know, what were the conditions when the driveway cut was put in?
Mm-hmm.
Were there, you know, promises that at the time that parking would not be taken away, and now we're going back against it? I'm just thinking these exact same questions are going to be asked at the next level if it goes through.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you have those answers or not.
Well, the 1A's been there since the early 1900s.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, both of them there, Chief. This is a 98 aerial, and both of them are. It looks like they're
Been there
both.
for years. I went to Academy Hill School and was there then.
Yeah, I'm just, you know, I'm just thinking that even if we
So at least
approve it,
30
are we
years, right?
giving, you know, at the next level of,
I kind of think you need a plan. I mean, I don't want to put the burden just on you, but I also, from the past actions of the select board, you know, the details, the widths, and makes the case and perhaps sets out so that we don't just indiscriminately take more away than we have to. In other words, then we could determine perhaps that the amount of spaces that are eliminated are minimized. You know, in other words, perhaps we can achieve both objectives. Partial yellow line that would facilitate the vehicle movements, but then perhaps still allow a parking spot or two. From something like this, I just don't have enough information to say or understand where you might be able to start and stop those lines, if that's even possible.
You would say, I would say you're eliminating 2 parking spots.
Yeah, and
If you-
so
just opposite the driveway cut is what I'm actually what I'm asking for. And so you could back straight out the driveway and then make a left-hand turn down Lily Street.
I feel like we need a little more information, or, I mean, I'm happy to table and not deny.
Yeah.
But I feel like if you're going to, you know, again, as an advisory committee to the select board, in order to have our recommendations have a chance of being approved by them, I think we have to show a level of due diligence, sort of on part of both the applicant and the committee, that really lays out, you know, exactly, you know, where are we talking about for a start and a stop of these lines? How long would they be and how many spaces?
I could present that to you. I could go out there and measure it, actually measure it, and
I think that would be helpful.
make a
Some
request.
photos and a stronger case would then have a better
lot of this
chance after this.
a lot of this comes down to turning radiuses and everything else too, so.
The bill
That's
for your,
what
the
take
bill
a
for your
day.
tire.
And honestly, this is to build the case for you.
yeah, right.
This is
Right.
because there's so many times it's yeah, and then it gets to the next level, and there's a whole nother level of discussion, and you know, a lot of the stuff that I just said, you know, the driveways have been in for so long, why now, and what were the promises before, and where they put in the curb cut saying no, we won't ask for parking spots to be taken away, and you know, all that history of the project.
Right.
And with all that information available, it's a lot easier case to make a decision on.
Where do you find that information? Where would I have to find that information for you? Where
Well,
would
the older driveways you wouldn't, but you know,
Oh, these driveways have been there for,
they all have been.
so,
Okay.
I think even a picture, a sketch, some distances
The difficulty of the turning.
might help. How wide is
Would
the
help.
road?
Yeah.
You know,
And
maybe,
quite
maybe
frankly-
Mike can help you with that, maybe you can do it, I don't know.
Yeah, frankly, if you know how many cars you can park in your driveway and how many spaces you're actually removing.
Exactly.
I can, I can put in 1A Lily, probably one car, and 2, and 5 Lily, probably 3 cars. Yeah.
All that goes to the longer case of supporting the removal of the parking spaces on the street.
Yeah.
I make a motion to table this to the August meeting for additional information.
Sure.
So I'll put as much together as I can and come in then, present it to the ladies downtown and get it on the agenda.
Perfect.
Sure. So motion to table. Would you suggest maybe scheduling a site visit for this
I
location?
think we can all probably just
go on
visit
our
it
own
on
and
our
kinda take a
own
look at it?
and try and have to post something. That'd be my personal opinion. We can't get a quorum here.
Understood. So motion to table. Is there a second?
I'll second.
G. Jack, I'm gonna give you that one. I give the last one to Steve.
That's it.
Motion to table. All those in favor say aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Any opposed? We'll table. Any other business from the committee? No other business? Approval of minutes of June 20th. Are there any changes at all to the minutes? We'll go ahead and accept those by consent. And adjournment. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right. That's favor say aye.
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 All right. We'll adjourn at 11:30.